Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome again aboard the Ki-109 to a double feature. The first battle will be ground pounding and the second one will be attacking planes, and I want to talk you through what I think about it and actually want to advertise a new playstyle. Not a certainly new playstyle, but one that I think is more rewarding, more fun, more engaging and less repetitive. So certain planes, they struggle to get spaded, they don't really fit the meta of War Thunder, and the Ki-109 could be used in tank RP, and I agree to that, but there are too many ifs. Do I get enough spawn points with my tank to spawn this plane? At the point where I then spawn in this plane, are there enemy fighters looking for me, which I can not really defend myself against? Are there still tanks on the ground that I can actually kill? Do I have the right approach angle? Is there AAA in the air? Not in the air, but on the ground that is shooting at me, because I'm a rather slow and big target. Do I have enough ammunition to get it? What is about my income? And if and whatnot and so forth. So for tank RB, I agree, it's possible. Certain people get more pleasure out of it than I do, but ultimately I want to show off those planes in air RB. So that's just one aspect. And again, there are two playstyles. For example, ground pounding. Ground pounding is very situational, and in this situation, in this battle, I was very lucky. I had a kind of a area where there were kind of a concentration of ground targets, soft targets, and my plane is not really suited very well for dealing with them. Eventually I will do, but you can see the amount of effort I have to put into it, the time required, and that there was no enemy plane around to deal with me. And I also use my back gunner or my turret in the back to shoot at those soft targets. But ultimately I'm a downside to my team, or I'm not helping them winning the game, because I am doing my own thing. Eventually maybe I'm just a easy kill for an enemy plane, and yeah, I'm shooting up insignificant enemy ground units, soft units that a normal fighter with machine guns could deal with. But I take a lot of time, and somewhat, I guess, that leads to this capture zone A, I guess, to be captured a minute earlier, but I'm not really influencing the outcome of the battle actively. And there are other ground units that are better suited to be killed, and for example, medium tank line columns, light pillboxes, ships maybe, but then the 75 you need too many hits for certain ships, and I guess a destroyer already is unsinkable, maybe, I don't know, have not tried it enough. Cargo ships maybe, but then again I don't know how many hits they need, and you just have a limited amount of ammunition for this 75mm gun, and you have no additional armament. So for example, an ME410 with the 50mm gun is better suited for this task because it has additional 20mm guns in the front. And when the plane first came out, the ME410 with the 50mm, it just had this 50mm, and people really struggled, so Gaijin kind of ninja buffed it with the additional 20mm. So yeah, we can see that I have a good time shooting up those targets, but it's boring, it's repetitive. I'm in a very lucky situation that there is no enemy plane flying around. But you can see that the plane is actually handling nicely indeed. I'm not falling out of the sky like, for example, in a German Duck. So I think to myself, well, you know, what am I really doing here? I'm just doing my own thing. I'm not shooting up those blinking ground targets on certain maps, you know, that actually lead to a ticket train, and in conjunction with bombers that go for the bombing points, and also late game stages when there, after like 20 minutes, appear the vehicles that you could also easily farm, that also drain the tickets. You then eventually will win the game by ground pounding, which happens in maybe 5-6% of the games, and then again it's a bit boring. And it also mostly happens when the last enemy plane just runs. So there is one particular nation, or two nations, the British to a certain degree, but First of all, the Americans, and with it currently also the French, with a lot of the American planes in their tech tree that can really influence the outcome of a battle. Just talking here about prop-driven aircraft. With all the rockets that can destroy pillboxes and light tanks and medium tanks and so forth, the strength of 50 cals, which you actually can use to down a light pillbox. So if there's just one light pillbox standing between you and victory, shoot at the top of it with 50 cals at around about 400 meters. The armor piercing shells do enough damage to eventually down that light pillbox. It will require a lot of ammunition, but it is doable, and most American planes indeed have a lot of ammunition. So especially the ground attackers have so much bomb load, they have so many rockets, especially than the French 84 Skyraider, for instance. But you know, the 84 Skyraider in particular is a plane that I recently showed when using in the anti-fighter role, and in this respect the plane is, well, surprisingly good, and people just think you're nuts when you're doing it. But what is more fun? To hunt down enemy fighters, to down one or two of them, to drag them down, to increase the amount of victories that your team get, to, well, shorten the grind, to make it less boring, less repetitive, and just to a certain degree trolling with it, with the air start that is, and a bit of side climbing. You can get surprising results with this. But with the Ki-109 you're not really an anti-fighter kind of troll machine like the 84 Skyraider is against the Germans in particular. This is just my experience, so many people might not really be comfortable with this kind of playstyle. I am, and this is just the way that I think spading is much easier done, especially because a lot of the ground pounders in the game require a lot of upgrades to get into the ground pounding potential that they eventually have. For example, the rocket pods and bomb pods on attackers, more ammunition, more gun pods for the offensive armament, and also the belts. They require a lot of upgrades. And there we can see, after I went back to the airfield, rearmed, refueled, repaired, the game was eventually over because the rest of my team won it for me. And let's just have a quick look at the results. And we can see actually not that much, just around about 13,000 silver lines and just around about 3,600 research points. For this kind of gameplay where I cut out a lot of it. Now another kind of battle that I want to show you just comes up in a moment, where I cut out a lot of the beginning of the match, and I was positioning myself, I was climbing, and I, well, looked around what targets are there left. Now I'm not engaging the Spitfires, but I spotted a big plane, a really big plane. I've loaded HE for the 75mm, and I should be used to the trajectory of the 75mm by now. But when shooting at something that's flying, because that was actually the battle afterwards, I was, misaiming quite a lot. And that is a P-8. The P-8 is a nasty plane to be attacked by a fighter, because it has those defensive machine guns, it has those defensive 20mm, and we all know how Russian or Soviet 20mm defensive gunners are. They are nasty. They are really, really nasty. And there you can see the speed of this plane. I'm going like 600 kilometers an hour. I'm just throttling down because I don't want to overspeed in the dive. Yes, I'm going red. I'm reducing the throttle. I'm going a bit up for a better approach angle. I do some long-range shooting around about now, but it's heavily misaimed. The P-8 is slower than anticipated. I should aim much better right now. That one fell too short, just a close miss, but this one does the job. I took some damage, but because I am respected as kind of a bomber, I have the better damage model compared to a fighter, so even my fire was extinguished. I'm going to head on with this Russian P-47 and the meme. So those were the last two enemy fighters. I influenced the outcome of the battle. I shortened it because, you know, the P8 would have gone back to base, landed, repaired, rearmed, and started off again, and maybe eventually took down some of our fighters. Yes, we were not really in the danger of losing, but, you know, 2 quick kills after just a few minutes of gameplay. It's so much better than just farming up the ground units, and on this map in particular I could have done so, but eventually the enemy team, just looking at the kill feed, they know exactly where I am, and that P47 would have an easy job of downing me because yeah, it's difficult to get out of a ground strike into a head-on. There you can see the result, more than double the silver line income with 26,000 and even 3,800 research points. Much better. And now let's go to that picture and let's compare it. First of all, with the 9 ground units, I got nearly double the score points that I got with the 2 planes shot down. And that is deceiving people. They think, look, I am very much on top of the leaderboard. That means I have influenced the battle. No, you haven't. You just still need to shoot down planes in order to influence the outcome of the battle in 80, 90, 95% of the battles. And yeah, certain planes are not that easy to use in this role, like the Ki-109. However, those were the 2 battles that I just played today, and I think they are a perfect, well, look at the results and just to demystify the score points income when you look at the leaderboard. It tells you nothing. Much like in Tank RP, when you have killed 10 tanks and have captured 3 base points, and there is still somebody on top of you that has shot down maybe 1 or 2 planes in his plane after he rushed a cap. And with this, I think that's enough rambling for me. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this result, what you think about the comparison and the playstyle. I'm very interested in it, and as usual, we'll see each other in the skies of War Thunder.